Final Fantasy IX. Coming out only a year after the hyper-realistic, freakishly long-legged teen angst of 8, and only 3 after Final Fantasy VII changed the world of JRPGs forever, Square decided to go back to their roots. Gone were the dystopian steampunk cities, drivable cars, evil mega corporations, long white-haired villains with god complexes. Oh, no, wait, no, they kept that one. And back in were medieval castles, black mages, and whatever the heck Qs are. Hello everyone, my name is Mage, and today I'm going to share with you all, as best I can, the many reasons I love Final Fantasy IX. Before we begin, I think some context is probably needed. My Final Fantasy journey started with Final Fantasy X. It was my first ever real RPG experience other than Pokemon, and it awakened something in me. I was completely enraptured by the story, the monsters, the world, the characters. I played it to death. And once I hit the end credits for the first time, I decided to check out the special feature disc that came with a copy of the game. It was mostly some interviews with the developers and voice actors talking about various aspects of the game and how it was made, and I loved it. Seriously, more games need to do this sort of thing. I remember MGS2 having something similar. Man, I watched that a lot. However, there was one section that really piqued my interest. It was a short retrospective on the series leading up to 10. It really just consisted of a montage of gameplay starting with 5, not sure why they didn't start with 1, and working up through the games in release order. This was the first time I'd ever seen anything of the games in the series prior, and boy, did it get me excited. Now admittedly, even to my 10-year-old brain, they did look quite dated compared to the amazing graphics on the PS2, but it didn't matter. I needed to play them all. And where did I start? Well, I decided I'd work my way backwards, which naturally led me to Final Fantasy IX. While I can't remember exactly where I bought it, I do remember very distinctly being amazed that it came on 4 discs. Up until then, the only game that I'd played that was on multiple CDs was Metal Gear Solid, and that was on only 2. My tiny kid brain couldn't even comprehend how massive the game must be. So much space for activities. Man, that opening movie before the title screen, giving us just a glimpse of the adventure ahead, the places you're gonna visit, the sights you're gonna see, and that music, oh! The track is actually called The Place I'll Return to Someday, and that hints at some pretty major themes in the game. Selecting New Game, you are treated to an incredibly beautiful CG opening, something that Square have always knocked out of the park. It might not be as flashy as 8's or as iconic as 7's, but I don't think I'll ever get tired of that sweeping shot of Alexandria up on the cliffs, the birds alongside the airship, orchestral score soaring over the opening credits. Goosebumps every time. We are then introduced to the main character, the main protagonist of Final Fantasy IX, the monkey-tailed Zidane. Zidane? I've always called him Zidane. Deal with it. Now, the thing with Final Fantasy IX is that it completely forgoes the more realistic art style of the previous couple games, for something much more cartoony and exaggerated. As if that wasn't enough, they decided to throw all sorts of weird and wonderful touches like hippo people, talking rats, knights with eyeliner, and whatever the heck Qs are. And this put a lot of people off at the time. This is one of the main criticisms I always hear from people who dislike 9, that it's too cutesy and childish. Personally, I've never had an issue with it, and it fits with the more fantastical kind of fantasy they wanted to return to. This change to a more whimsical world is also reflected in Zidane himself. He isn't some mopey edgelord with social difficulties and a penchant for random traumatic flashbacks. He's an upbeat, optimistic soul who just wants to help people. And get laid. He really, really wants to get laid. That's not to say he's always happy-go-lucky, and as the game progresses, we learn more about him and his past, and things get pretty dark. In fact, while on the surface, Final Fantasy IX is a very light-hearted romp, with frog-catching minigames, little birdmen in spectacles, and property theft, underneath it deals with some pretty heavy stuff and can be straight-up crushingly bleak at times. I find it balances the two really well and knows exactly when to raise or release the tension. Shortly after we meet Zidane and his merry band of thieves, we get thrown into our first battle, and it's against their boss, Baku, who's wearing dragon cosplay. Amazing. Immediately, the game tells you it has a sense of humor, with Baku even falling over occasionally during the attack. I love it. I freaking love Baku. You can also steal from him a weapon whose significance wasn't immediately known to me as a kid, but would grow to become a huge part of my identity as an adult. The fabled Mage Masher. Yep, for those who don't know, that is where I got my name from. Yes, I'm a big nerd. Once the battle is over and Baku and the gang explain their goal, to kidnap the fat-ass, butt-ugly the Princess Garnet of Alexandria, we get another stunning CG cutscene of the airship Prima Vista. Is it Prima Vista? I don't know. Flying over the town. Can I just say, this is easily my favorite airship in the entire series. I love everything about its design, its role in the story. I just wanted to live on it as a kid. I still do. I remember I even converted an old model of a seafaring galleon I had as a kid into the Prima Vista using cocktail sticks and blue tack. God, I miss that thing. Then, my friends, we are introduced to my favorite character in the whole game, the adorable black mage Vivi. Obviously a throwback to the classic pointy hat design from earlier games, his journey of self-discovery, coming to terms with who he is really the heart and soul of the game. It's just so easy to root for him. And gosh, he's so darn cute! Also, he falls over a lot. Like, a lot. Poor little guy. Exploring Alexandria with Vivi is actually one of my favorite parts of the game. The town is abuzz with excitement, with the princess' birthday celebrations in full swing, the promise of a play that evening at the castle. You really get a sense of occasion. Various townsfolk exclaim how they are super looking forward to the evening's festivities, and it just makes the world feel instantly real and welcoming. Visually, Final Fantasy IX is undoubtedly one of the best looking PS1 games ever made. It looked great on my 17-inch CRT TV at the end of my bunk bed as a kid, and it still looks great to me today as a bald, slightly chubby 30-year-old. The pre-rendered backgrounds may not be super high-res nowadays, but the level of detail in every screen is glorious. The artwork and design of Nine's world is truly inspired and has some really unique locations, as well as your standard spooky forests and castles. Some of my favorites include Clara, a village atop a giant tree surrounded by a freaking sandstorm, Treno, the town of eternal night, and Lindblum, the best city in any video game ever. Don't at me. More on that later. You're always rewarded for exploration too. Hidden items are everywhere. A handy-dandy exclamation point appears whenever one is within reach, and I cannot stress enough how satisfying it is to wander over to a little corner in a room, a place you'd have no other reason to wander over to otherwise, and see one of these pop up. I spent hours scouring every inch of this game in hope of finding an extra bit of money, potion, or even important key items. And yes, you are a terrible person if you steal that poor old lady's stash of gil. I'm a terrible person. Another example of Final Fantasy IX's genius is how it approaches save points. In previous games like 7 and 8, save points were just that. Points you clicked on to save your game. They were basically inanimate objects, even if they did have, well, animation. In 9, however, they made the fantastic decision to make each one of them a Moogle. Yes, the adorable pom-pom-winged fuzzballs make a return to the series, and honestly, it's my favorite use of them in the whole franchise. Every single one of them has their own personality and even relationships with other Moogles. You learn about them through your interactions with them and also the Mognet side quest. This is just a letter delivery side quest, and while completely optional, adds a lot of charm and character to what is essentially a save button. I loved reading about what the Mughals thought about recent plot events, or even just random small talk they had between their friends. There's even a family of them, and more babies get born throughout the game, and oh my god, it's too wholesome. While you're exploring Alexandria, you may come across one of the more divisive aspects of the game, the card game. Now, Tetramaster is absolutely, without a doubt, an inferior card game compared to Final Fantasy VIII. I freely admit this. It serves no purpose mechanically, and the game sometimes just does what it wants. However, to this day, I still find it immensely fun and satisfying collecting all of the cards. I was obsessed trying to get them all as a kid, and would spend hours hunting them down playing countless games even though I had absolutely no idea what all the numbers meant. Plus, the music is banging. It's not long before we meet both Princess Garnet and her ever-struggling acting bodyguard, captain of the Knights of Pluto, old Rusty himself, Steiner. And yes, he totally wears eyeliner. Look at it! I love Steiner's character. He's bumbling, blindly loyal to a fault, and stubborn as a mule, or a chocobo. But he's got a heart of gold, and this is perfectly captured in his musical theme. God, it fits him so well. He has such a great character arc as well. I adore his interactions with Zidane at first. They're at each other's throats constantly, but eventually grow to care and respect each other, more or less. He makes for fantastic comic relief, and the way he grows over the course of the game is really great to see. Also, he totally skipped all of the leg days. Garnet, on the other hand, is a character I feel doesn't get talked about nearly enough. She is such a breath of fresh air. She may be a princess, but she does not need rescuing. I mean, at one point she does, but shh. She's resourceful, takes initiative, and absolutely is just as capable as our main hero, even if she is incredibly naive at times. But this makes a lot of sense. She spent most of her 16 years living a very sheltered life, of privilege, taught how to be proper. So for most of the game, she's trying to learn to blend in more with the regular common folk, which leads to some hilarity. It's incredibly endearing. She has goals and will do whatever it takes to see them accomplished, even if it doesn't always work out the way she wants. Peach could certainly learn a thing or two from Garnet, that's all I'm saying. Oh, come to think of it, this whole scene where Garnet escapes from Zidane and Steiner, I remember seeing this in a trailer or something on the Disney Channel when I was a kid. I think so anyway. Does anyone else remember that? This was before I knew about Final Fantasy, so I didn't really pay any attention, but for some reason it always stuck with me. I don't know. It's a pretty great sequence though. I love Steiner crashing into the water tower or whatever the hell that is. Look at his leg twitching. I have many fond memories of Evil Forest, the first real enemy-infested area of the game. The music is one of the most underrated forest themes in any RPG. My god, the atmosphere! Oh, it's so good. I spent many hours here grinding against the poor gobbies and fangs. I would get Zidane to like level 20 or something stupid. Now this wasn't always by choice. Unfortunately, at some point, my original copy of Final Fantasy IX was quite badly damaged. I accidentally yanked my PS1 off of its shelf. Thanks wired controllers. You kids don't know how good you've got it. And that meant, during this very cutscene, it would always freeze. I was distraught. I couldn't buy another one because I was a kid and I had no money. I'd spent it all on Mars bars and Pokemon cards. So all I could do was fight in the first few screens of Evil Forest, and you know what? I still bloody enjoyed it. I know I've mentioned how great the cutscenes are and They are fantastic, but there's also some great direction in-game too. The sequence when Garnet and Steiner are trying to sneak into South Gate has a fantastic piece of camera work. You manage to get past the guards and you think you've got away with it, but then suddenly one of the guards calls after you and my god, the slow camera pan. It's like, uh-oh, we're in trouble now. The music cutting out is a brilliant touch as well. Okay, I'm sorry, but I need to talk more about Lindblum. Its scale is awe-inspiring. Up until this point in the game, towns and villages have been pretty, well, normal. Then the game's like, here, have a giant city built on a mountain with airships, and I want to live there so bad. Real life sucks. I can't really describe why I love it so much. The atmosphere is so lively, friendly, and there's just so much to explore and see. Also, the fact that Zidane's Tantalus crew live here, and it makes it feel like you're returning home after a long and dangerous journey, even if that adventure is only really just beginning. Plus, it's ruled by my favourite Cid in any of the games. 7's comes close, you know, sit down and drink your goddamn tea, but I'll take Cid for Boole any day. Even if he is an Oglop. Or a frog. By the way, can we please get Oglops in another Final Fantasy? They are top tier. Guac. In Lindblum, you meet Freya, who has one of the more tragic backstories in the game. I love how they kind of mix a typical red mage aesthetic with her being a dragoon. And she is badass. Jumps for days! Once you leave Lindblum, the game opens up a lot, and you can start to explore more of the world. This is one of my favourite aspects of 9. It's world building. Every single place in the game, every region on the world map has an individual name. The Ebb Mountains, Popus Heights, Derrick Beach. It just makes the world feel so dense and real. They didn't need to do this, but they did. It's fantastic. At this point, I need to mention Chocobos. Everyone always talks about Chocobo racing and breeding in 7, and don't get me wrong, I love that system. 7 does great things with Chocobos. The less said about 8, the better. But you know what 7 doesn't have? The best minigame ever, Chocobo Hot and Cold, is incredible. Digging for treasure with your trusty bird Choco in various locations throughout the game is incredibly addictive and rewarding. Finding chocographs and then seeking out their locations on the world map itself is without a doubt my favourite side quest in any RPG. You can get some seriously good treasure, and eventually this leads to Choco becoming stronger and changing colour, gaining new abilities like being able to climb mountains or swim in the ocean. I have to do this every time I play 9, it is so much fun. Another thing you can do at this point is explore Q's Marsh. Now, as a kid, for some reason, I completely missed this. Maybe I was too busy eating Mars bars and organizing my Pokemon card collection. In it, we find Quina? Kina? I've never really known how to pronounce their name. They are completely optional at this point in the game, but recruiting them now makes the next part of the game so much easier. I love that the game does this. Again, it's rewarding your curiosity with a whole new character. And they're a little bit weird. They fulfill the blue magic role, which uses enemy skills against them. But how does it learn enemy skills? Well, it eats them, of course. Quina only cares about food. Tasty yummies. That is their only goal, their only reason for traveling with us, to stuff its creepy face with grub. And you know what? I'm okay with that. You can actually see them much earlier in the game, way back in Alexandria. And eventually they do join the party anyway later in the game. But it's so cool that you can have them so much earlier if you just explore a little. Oh my god, I can't believe I nearly forgot to mention my second favourite character in the game. I think her theme is actually a better way to introduce her. I'm sorry, but Uematsu freaking killed it with this soundtrack. I think I read somewhere that he actually said it was his favourite game to work on too, so that's pretty cool. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure I heard that somewhere. But yes, General Beatrix is my wife and you can't have her. She's a fantastic example of how to do a recurring enemy right. You genuinely feel afraid whenever she turns up, because you know she will absolutely wreck you. I love her so much I even designed and named my Final Fantasy XIV character after her. Now I just need to find a body pillow. Final Fantasy as a series was about to transition to a whole new generation. Ahead of it was the considerable leap to PS2, and with that, things would begin to change significantly. Things like voice acting, enhanced visuals, 3D environments, and different design choices. With Final Fantasy IX, it feels like the developers understood this, and they made 9 as a love letter to everything that had come before. It brought back 4-member parties, crystals, medieval settings, and countless references to older games. Well, you probably can count them, but that would take too long and I can't be bothered. It may play it safe with a lot of its mechanics, it's nowhere near as complicated as the junction system from 8, nor is it as customizable as 7's materia, but I feel that was the point. It was meant to be a callback to simpler times. Saying goodbye to the old while paying homage to the games that started it all. The amazing thing is that even though it owes so much to the previous entries in the series, it more than stands on its own as a game and a story. At least I think so. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire rest of the game and describe everything I enjoy, because otherwise this video would be about 20 hours long. I will say that a huge part of why Final Fantasy IX is so important to me is the time in my life that I played it. I was just starting high school, it's a scary and stressful time as it is for most preteens, I think everyone can relate to that in some way. Final Fantasy IX was my escape. Journeying through Gaia and Terra with Zidane and co. was something I found comfort in. It was my safe space. And this is a huge theme in the game, finding somewhere you belong, a place to call home. While I wasn't comfortable in the real world, going through many changes as a young boy, and my family life being pretty turbulent at times, I felt I'd found something that really meant something to me. And that, my friends, is why I love Final Fantasy IX. Well, thanks for watching everyone. This was a video that I really put a lot of time and effort into, and I really hope you enjoyed it. I really do. Please let me know if you have any Final Fantasy IX stories yourself in the comments. I'd love to see them. And yeah, I just really hope you got something out of this video, even if it was a little bit self-indulgent at times. I felt I needed to give this game a little bit of a, I don't know, just something to get my feelings out there on the game, and yeah, it's very special to me. Thank you so much for checking this out, everyone. Please do like the video, share it, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I may do more videos like this in the future on other games that are very near and dear to my heart. So yeah, if you really did enjoy this, I would appreciate any support possible. Thanks again, everyone. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.